it's not healthcare. It's called disease management care. And as soon as we start calling it what it is, if you call a duck, then you're going to have an easier time understanding what we want to try to accomplish when we talk about healthcare. So let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. If you were to go into a doctor and say, I don't feel good, and the doctor finds out that you have, let's say, high blood pressure, and gives you a drug that drops that blood pressure to normal, what the doctor is doing is managing your disease state, more specifically the disease numbers, and trying to control the disease. But they're not making you healthy. Just because you take a drug for blood pressure and now the blood pressure becomes normal doesn't necessarily make you a healthier person. In fact, a lot of these drugs have some pretty significant side effects that make you feel unhealthy. But let's conflict or contrast that with if a person goes into a doctor, doesn't feel well, and doctor says, Mr. Jones, Mrs. Jones, you have high blood pressure, and then sits down with you and says, now, why did this occur? What the heck are you eating? And you describe what you're eating. Maybe cereal for breakfast, McDonald's for lunch, and then fried chicken for dinner. And the doctor says, you gotta cut that out. You gotta change the way you're eating, and starts to describe to you that maybe you should have some eggs and vegetables in an omelet with some arugula inside your omelet. And then for lunch, you should have a nice big salad, which is with as many vegetables as you can fit in there, with olive oil and vinegar, maybe some chicken, maybe some fish. And then for dinner, you should have broccoli and chicken. And he gives you some handouts of how to easily cook these meals and says, here's what we want you to do. We want you to change what you're eating to make you healthier so that your blood pressure changed. And then he's not done with that. And he says, what did you do today in terms of exercise? And you say, nothing. I don't like to exercise. And he says, okay, here's what I want you to do is after lunch, I want you to get out of wherever you are, your house, or if you're working or whatever, and I want you to go for a 5-minute walk that way, turn around and come back. You don't have to sweat. You don't have to put on any special clothing, but I want you to walk for 10 minutes after lunch. And then after dinner, I want you to do the same. So we're gonna start you exercising in a way that's fun and enjoyable for you, that doesn't cost you any money. As time goes on, we'll have you do some other things in terms of exercise, but one of the benefits of walking, in particular walking, after eating a meal, is that it will lower your blood sugar because you're using a muscle in your calf called a soleus muscle that is very hungry for glucose. And one of the things that will happen is if you eat a meal, depending on the meal, if it has a lot of sugar, it will rise your blood sugar levels. And therefore now you don't just have high blood pressure, but you have high blood sugar. And high blood sugar, called diabetes, essentially, will contribute towards hardening your arteries and make your blood pressure go up. So in a sense, we're doing a two-pronged effect. We're lowering your blood sugar, but we're also going to be lowering your blood pressure by exercising your heart, exercising your cardiovascular system, and lowering your blood sugar, which will contribute to less atherosclerosis. Thus, we're going to help your blood pressure, because your doctor should explain to you that high blood pressure is a very important risk factor for heart attacks and strokes, and we don't want you to have those. We want you to be healthy. Now, how long did that take me? I'm almost done at 4 minutes and 20 seconds. How long would it take a doctor to explain these things to you? Maybe he'll explain it a little slower, a little easier to understand, spend more time with you, but what is he gonna do? Spend 6 minutes, 10 minutes on an appointment? You see, that is healthcare. Healthcare is about improving your health. Disease management is about managing numbers and making sure the disease stays stable or that you won't die from the disease. And when you describe our healthcare system as a disease management system, then it's not a slam on them. I'm not saying that it's bad. What I'm saying is if we call it for what it is, we can start to think to ourselves, well, wait a minute. Now that I know when I have a disease, I go to the disease management people, but if I want health, I have to go to people that are going to help me contribute to my health. And usually, in most cases, that's not your doctor. That's some other type of doctor, like a chiropractic doctor, a doctor of chiropractic, or other types of doctors do this as well. The interesting thing and the good news is many doctors, particularly younger doctors, are starting to jump on the bandwagon and starting to understand that they're not in the healthcare business. They're in the disease management business. And that's why you see so many medical doctors and doctors of osteopathy on YouTube starting to have channels where they're trying to promote health. The majority of the time, this has just been my observation, and I could be wrong, the majority of the time it's not an intellectual change, it's a personal change. Most of these doctors that have changed over from thinking disease management to healthcare usually had a personal change themselves. They themselves had high blood sugar. They themselves had high blood pressure. They were obese. They weren't healthy. They were working themselves to the bone, and they said to themselves, hey, I don't want to live like this, and found that their own profession could not help them. Their own profession had a pill for every ill, a drug for every ugh. They found that there was no help given to them from the very profession that they joined. Then they started exploring, and guess what? That's where alternative health care comes in. And to me, it's not even alternative healthcare. That's an insult. It's not an alternative. What's an alternative to? Disease management? Healthcare is healthcare. Disease management is disease management. And again, I'm not slamming medical doctors or the whole medical system, because if I get in a car accident, my arm is torn off my body, I want someone to stitch my arm back onto my torso and give me drugs. Trust me, I'm gonna want drugs, strong drugs, because I wanna manage the pain. But once I do recover, what's the health of the shoulder gonna be like? That's gonna depend on how I think. So the mindset of healthcare versus disease care is really where we have to start thinking of how to describe what it is that we do so that we can get better outcomes and really understand what our goals are.